Nebraska Board of Regents will delay its vote on an $800 million deal, which would see the University of Nebraska buy out Clarkson Regional Health's share in Nebraska Medicine. Today, 33 of 49 state senators urged the regents to delay the vote until the public has a chance to learn more about the proposal. The regents rescheduled their meeting, originally set for tomorrow, to next Thursday. Well, our Brenna Kiefner has been digging into this mounting pressure faced by the Board of Regents, and she's live in the newsroom with how Nebraska Medicine is responding to this delayed vote.
Brenna, they've been against this buyout since we first reported it last week.
That's exactly right, Brian and Aaron. Nebraska Medicine launched a full-scale campaign calling the buyout a state takeover. It's a pressure campaign that they believe is actually working. For nearly 30 years, Nebraska Medicine has operated as a partnership between Clarkson Regional Health Services and the University of Nebraska. Now Clarkson wants to walk away in a deal worth $800 million. University President Jeffrey Gold calls it an amicable divorce. Nebraska Medicine sees it differently.
What we've been asking for is a seat at the table, and we've not been included in the negotiation of the transaction. We think there's a better way to do this.
Here's what's at stake. Right now, Nebraska Medicine controls its own strategy. They decide how to invest their money. If the deal goes through, Nebraska Medicine says the Board of Regents would have that power, and they're worried that could change patient care.
They potentially could have the power to determine what practices, what procedures, what therapies we provide to our patients.
There's also the money. The state faces a $471 million budget shortfall. The university wants to spend $800 million. Nebraska Medicine says that raises a lot of questions.
Where's the funding going to come from? How are you raising that funding? What's the future look like for Nebraska Medicine? What assurances can you give the team at Nebraska Medicine that their fiduciary authority will continue into the future? And I think what we're seeing is those questions are being asked and they're not being adequately answered.
First Alert 6 sat down with Dr. Gold on Monday. He ensured the two entities will remain financially separate and address the financial questions.
Well, so we have been saying and trying to be very clear that this is not going to touch the academic budgeting from the state, tuition dollars, et cetera. That this will be financed through a combination of what is called structured debt, letters of credit, and by monetizing the real estate.
Thursday morning, 32 state senators joined Nebraska Medicine's fight. They sent a letter demanding more time. The letter wrote, rushing a vote of this magnitude could erode public trust. In a statement Thursday night, the university said the meeting was rescheduled to optimize meeting participation and to provide more time for people to better understand the proposal. Nebraska Medicine now has an extra week to make its case.
What we're advocating for is quite simple. Please just respect our contractual right. Give us a seat at the table. Even if it's not our right, it makes sense. And allow us to be part of the negotiation.
So, Brenna, they have this extra week now. What happens next?
Fritz said Nebraska Medicine will keep pushing. They're asking people to contact the regents through their website. He's hoping this extra time convinces the regents to include them in the conversation. Live in the newsroom, Brenna Kiefner, First Alert 6.
Brenna, thanks. Now, another item which was